Sir Nenny. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us here in the beautiful concourse of the Vancouver International Airport. My name is Brenda Bailey, and I am the Minister of Jobs, Economic Development and Innovation for the province of British Columbia. I'm very pleased to be your MC today. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge that we're gathering on the territories of the Musqueam Nation, and it's my pleasure to welcome, to speak to you next, Chief Wayne Sparrow. Chief Sparrow.
HYOCM. My name is Wayne Sparrow. I'm the elected chief of the Musqueam First Nation. My traditional name is Yakalak. It's a privilege and honor, and I want to thank Minister Blair for giving us this opportunity. And Tamara, once again, it's so exciting to come to these events and the Premier of building those relationships and those partnerships. And on a day like today, it was very important that I show up in person because of our teachings of our elders and our community about the environment. And some of the announcements that are going to be coming out is so important to our community. I can look out the window and see our band office from here. So it's with great pleasure I come today and stand with you today and with you, Premier, of making these announcements for a better future for all of us. And so honored that I get to stand here and work with you on accomplishing these goals. You know, we have so many tough goals in our life, but if we work together, and we will accomplish them. So on behalf of our community, I want to welcome each and every one of you here today, and I'll now pass it on, and thank you again. And it's such an exciting time. And Tamara, I want to thank you personally for all your hard work and commitment that you've made in our friendship agreement and made sure that those goals and objectives are achieved, and under your leadership shows us how we can build our family together. So, HKCM, thank you.
Thank you very much for your words, Chief Sparrow, and I had the opportunity to speak to you briefly before we started today, and you shared that more than 50 people from your nation are currently working at the airport, with more to come. So what a wonderful collaboration you have. Thank you for your words of welcome. I'm here alongside the Premier of British Columbia, the Honourable David Eby, Heather McCarley, who is the board chair of the BC Aviation Council, and Tamara Vrooman, who of course is the president and CEO of Vancouver International Airport, and joined also by my friend and colleague George Heyman, who is our Minister of Environment. Thank you, Tamara, and to your entire team for hosting us here at this absolutely beautiful airport. YVR has long been committed to the protection of the environment and to building a cleaner economy. They've been ahead of the curve in addressing climate change in the sector, and are leaders driving changes that are good for both business and industry. YVR has committed to be the first airport in Canada to be net zero by 2030, and they are well on their way there by taking tangible, practical steps that prove their goal is possible if you do the work. The innovative actions YVR is taking to meet its climate goals align closely with our government's ambition to build a cleaner, stronger, and more inclusive economy for everyone. And we're so proud to strengthen our partnership with them towards this end. With more to say on this, please welcome the Premier of British Columbia, Premier Eby.
Thanks so much, everybody. Great to see you here today. Chief Sparrow, nice to see you. Thanks for the welcome to the territory. Really appreciate it. If we, just before we get started, if everyone can please remove your personal headsets in accordance with Transport Canada regulations. And we're repeating this one more time in French at the end. It was maybe over a year ago. I was out this end of the terminal because we were flying out for our trade diversification initiative to visit Singapore, Korea, Japan, Minister Brar, Mr. Bailey off to Vietnam, and at the launch of that, I had a chance to grab a few words with Tamara as head of YVR. and she said, you're headed off on this trade diversification piece. Here's what's going on at YVR. Here's what we're doing around economic development, climate, and just you're new in the gig. Don't lose, because we're federally regulated. Don't lose track of the fact that we're one of the biggest employers in the province, and we're a huge economic driver here. And there's lots that we could do together. It was the start of a conversation that resulted in today's announcement. It was an excellent check-in for me on a file that Minister Bailey has been working on for a while, Minister Heyman, other ministers, Minister of Transportation, Rob Fleming, independently, but the opportunity for us all to work together in a more coordinated way across ministries to really recognize and emphasize the role of YVR in driving our provincial economy. The numbers out of YVR are remarkable. 26,500 people employed, $20.2 billion in economic throughput, about $10 billion in GDP from YVR here. Unbelievable stuff. Overall, British Columbia has Canada's third largest aerospace sector. We've got major employers like Cascade. We've got KF out in Kelowna. And many smaller and regional players as well. There's 200 different companies in the sector, and in BC alone, there's 2,000 people who work in aerospace, and that's just direct. That doesn't talk about all the ancillary and important roles that YVR plays around advancing the use of BC technology, around climate readiness and preparation, as well as reducing pollution. So when you put all of that stuff together, the opportunity here is really significant. British Columbia is Canada's gateway to the Asia Pacific. We are a hub for goods and for people, and leveraging that for continued growth in a time of instability internationally, so that we're diversified, so our economy grows, continues to be a huge importance for us. One of the big challenges, obviously, we face as well is that YVR is going to, and we hope, and we're going to work to make sure that it's going to continue to grow. But we also know that there are significant pollution concerns about air travel, particularly related to climate change. The carbon intensity of air travel is something that's an international topic of discussion, and we all know where it's going. Everybody knows where the industry is going. In terms of smaller players here, but critically important to our economy, Harbour Air and Helijet. Helijet is going to be, they are projecting and hoping to be in partnership with Beta, the first VTOL, vertical takeoff and lift, electric operator to take passengers and cargo in Canada. Harbour Air working through regulatory certification for electric regional flights with their airline. Sustainable aviation fuel, low carbon, is believed by many, myself included, to be the necessary future of air travel. And so we need to continue to build on the fact that BC has been a leader in these areas, that our economy has grown because of our focus on climate, not despite our focus on climate. In the last 12 months, BC added 74,000 jobs to our provincial economy, the vast majority in the private sector, all these full-time jobs. We had the fastest GDP growth of all provinces post-pandemic in Canada. And we did that with high standards and taking action on climate, showing that these two things not only can go together, but must go together. Which brings me, at long last, to the reason why we're gathered here today. So many of you are like, get to the point, Eby. Today, we have a really important announcement formalizing our relationship with YVR, formalizing our work across ministries to advance our shared objectives by entering into an agreement with YVR around the following topics. Number one, supporting the growth of YVR while taking action on the pollution associated with the aviation sector, reducing that pollution and creating good family-supporting jobs right here in BC through sustainable aviation fuel. The second is growing investment and support for BC-made tech, supporting YVR's continuing effort to deploy BC solutions to the challenges of logistics and climate and clean technology in Canada and the world. Shared work to create sustainable jobs and opportunities for all British Columbians, and supporting YVR in employing more and more people in good family-supporting jobs, and expanding our work around trade diversification. Every time an airline adds a new direct route to a major center in the world, that is hundreds of jobs and significant GDP growth for our province and for our country. And we have a critical role to play in supporting that with YVR. To kick off this new partnership, we are announcing $800,000 in funding for 3 projects. We are setting out the intention and supporting the staff to be able to move forward with, first, a sustainable aviation fuel study. How do we ensure that the low-carbon fuel of the future for airlines is available for them when and where they need it? The Net Zero Airports Action Plan, recognizing the increasing regionalization of air and cargo travel in British Columbia to make sure that regional airports also benefit from these initiatives. And third, a study to enhance the movement of people and goods. As increasing amounts of cargo flow through YVR, how do we reduce truck traffic on the road? How do we ensure that it's more coordinated to minimize the impacts on traffic for people in the region, while minimizing the friction for people who are trying to move goods in and out of the Lower Mainland in particular, but British Columbia and Canada generally. This means good jobs for British Columbians, it means less traffic, it means cleaner air, it means all of us working together to make sure that this province is successful, and that's how we're going to be successful in this province, is by working together. And I want to thank YVR, and I absolutely also want to recognize the BC Aviation Council. We've got Heather McCarley, who's here joining us as well. The importance of the aviation sector, the importance of the aerospace sector to our province, which is only going to continue to grow. I'm just delighted to be here with you on this important announcement day, planting the seeds for a harvest to come that will benefit all British Columbians. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Premier. Through strengthening our partnership with YVR, we'll continue to establish our province as a world leader in sustainable aviation and innovative clean technology. I'd now like to invite Tamara Verman to come to the podium. Tamara.
Thanks very much, Minister. Premier, you mentioned the headsets. That was a little premature, but I have here to advise that it is a full flight, so we'd be happy to take any carry-on baggage and check it for you and assure you it'll be at your destination. Thanks very much, Minister. We are very, very pleased to be here in support of this partnership. It's a unique partnership, one that will lead not only YVR and our economic and sustainability focus forward, but also create benefit for the people who work here, the people who invest here, and the people who we serve. As you heard, YVR is located on the ancestral, continuously occupied and unceded territory of the Musqueam people, and I'd like to acknowledge the significant work that we have done together, Chief Sparrow, through our Sustainability and Friendship Agreement, a agreement that is unique in the country and creates opportunities for learning, for long-term planning, for employment, and economic reconciliation. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge, particularly at this time, elders, past and present. So thank you, Chief. I think that my speaking notes got somehow combined with the Premier's speaking notes, because pretty much everything I was going to say he's already said, so I could easily just say ditto. But let me highlight a few reasons why we're so excited by this announcement today. As you heard, the partnership will announce our work and advance our work in 3 key areas: supporting all BC airports to become net zero by 2030. A claim and a goal that we believe to be unique in the world. Building a sustainable aviation fuel industry in British Columbia, something that other jurisdictions have done. It's created significant competitive economic advantage as the world's aviation sector looks to more sustainable alternatives. There's a huge unmet demand for sustainable aviation fuel. We think we have the raw ingredients here to create that industry, and we're happy to be partnering on the first study to understand how to do just that. And finally, by improving how goods move in and out of YVR to other points in the region. We talk a lot about the passengers that come through our airport, but over 300,000 tons of goods move through our airport each and every year. Those goods are often the highest value goods. They're high value agricultural, produce, seafood, but also critically important medical supplies, medical equipment, and technological devices. The aviation sector is an important part of the supply chain, and without sustainable connectivity to other parts of the province, we leave the trade opportunities that we have for our businesses and our communities unfulfilled and unmet. We're an established leader in sustainability and well on our way to becoming net zero, as you heard, by 2030, the first airport in Canada to do so. And I'm proud to say that our regional airport colleagues, from Comox to Kelowna to Prince George and everywhere in between, share that vision. But they need support to validate and conduct baseline exercises to map out the roadmap to net zero, getting that key data that will allow them to know what changes they need to make to be truly net zero. With the support of the province, I'm happy to say that our industry will be able to significantly advance that work to create full net zero airports action plan for every single airport in the province. Once complete, we'll have a clear roadmap to become carbon neutral in the short term and a pathway to achieve full net zero by 2030. As I said before, this is significant. We know of no other large jurisdiction in the world where this has been achieved. And while our commitment to decarbonization started with our own operations, we know that developing sustainable aviation fuels locally is essential for the decarbonization of the larger aviation sector. We know that there are all sorts of alternatives on the horizon, be they battery-operated, hydrogen-fueled aircraft, but frankly, the aircraft that we operate today need to take a certain type of fuel. And the best pathway to decarbonize our industry is to make that fuel more sustainable so it can fit into aircraft that we already use, but decarbonize those planes as they fly, not only regionally, nationally, but of course, internationally. But there's many questions that we need to collectively answer to lay the foundation for commercially viable sustainable aviation fuel. Through our partnership, we're accelerating that work by looking at unique opportunities for made-in-BC sustainable aviation fuel. That includes looking at the viability of local sourced feedstocks, understanding infrastructure requirements for the production and delivery of SAF to airports, and creating a supportive public policy environment to ensure that sustainable aviation fuel that is made in BC is used at BC airports. More recently, the impacts of the 2022 atmospheric river event highlighted the importance and value of aviation resilience to the supply chain and infrastructure. During that time in November, those 10 days that the province was cut off by road and rail, YVR was the only operating transportation hub that connected the Lower Mainland to the rest of Canada and indeed the continent. We're investing in growing air cargo, and it's well positioned to be a hub within an integrated regional multimodal system. Together with the province, we'll be looking at these opportunities in greater detail. We're privileged to be located, for example, on a river. And Musqueam teachings tell us that rivers have long been corridors for trade and transportation. There's opportunities to use our air infrastructure proximate with our water location to create opportunities for more goods movement and connectivity along the river and across the strait to the benefit of the region. In closing, I often say that aviation is a team sport. Not one of us, myself included, can get anything done here without the assistance of others. And so on behalf of the 26,000 people who work here at YVR, dedicating their careers to the safe, secure, efficient movement of people and goods in our region, the partnership that we're announcing today is a perfect example of the positive impact that can be delivered when the public and private sectors work collaboratively. Thank you to Premier Eby for his curiosity and his support, and for the commitment to partner together to ensure that the work that we do here at YVR continues to extend, to lead for the benefit not only of our airport and our customers, but in fact for the province of British Columbia. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tamara. You've been a leader for sustainability in more than one role in our province, and it's great to have you at the helm of YVR an economic powerhouse in BC that facilitates business and economic growth in the province. I want to thank you again, Tamara, and everyone at YVR for being such willing and capable partners. Your commitment to decarbonization and ambitious clean tech goals have a direct impact on BC's climate targets. You stepped up to be our first test bed for our integrated marketplace initiative and are helping people provide a boost to many emerging BC companies of local talent, giving them the chance to expand and grow their market with their clean technology. Our government considers ourselves very fortunate to have a teammate like YVR to work alongside, and together we can make huge strides for sustainable economic growth throughout the province. I'd like now to invite Heather McClary to the podium to say a few words.
Premier Eby, Minister Bailey, Minister Heyman, Tamara, Chief Sparrow, and honored guests. I'd also like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Musqueam people, and thank you so much for the welcome. Well, I suppose it's to me to finish the onboarding announcement to ask you to please ensure your seatbelts are securely fastened and your tray tables are stowed. The BC Aviation Council is delighted at the announcement of the province's partnership with YVR on sustainable aviation fuel study, the pre-feasibility study exploring opportunities to enhance the movement of people and goods in our province, and the creation of a net zero airports action plan. I'd like to highlight one of these initiatives that I find particularly exciting, the Net Zero Airports Action Plan. In May of 2022, the BC Aviation Council held our first in-person meeting since the pandemic, which was our annual conference, Beyond COVID, a focus on sustainability, technology, and opportunities. The recognition was that our industry would only be successful if we looked past the current and continuing challenges to ensure that aviation and aerospace was environmentally sustainable for the long term. We asked the question, what can be done? It started with a conversation and then a commitment from the CEOs of the three largest airports in our province, YVR, Kelowna, and Victoria, to collaborate on potential initiatives for reducing carbon emissions for all airports in British Columbia. The idea and the commitment were taken on by the BCAC Climate Committee. In September of 2022, YVR with the BCAC hosted a very successful Decarbonization for BC Airports workshop. Extensive efforts have been made by YVR and a wide range of people from our industry, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the collaborative relationship with the BC Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure during the early days of this work. Aviation and aerospace in British Columbia, as Premier Eby said, serve as a powerful economic generator, connecting communities, people, and businesses, and facilitate response for medevacs, wildfires, and other emergencies. Fast forward to today's announcement, and we have a collaborative partnership between YVR and the province on these three projects that will help advance the sustainability of our industry, which is vital for the well-being of our province. This is amazing. Thank you for inviting me to join you on this occasion.
Thank you very much, Heather, and thanks to the BC Aviation Council for the great work it does to promote the sustainable development, growth, and advancement of aviation and aerospace in British Columbia. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Today's announcement is just the beginning. Watch this space, literally, for more big things ahead. I'd now like to invite Premier Eby and Tamara to sign the MOU before we open the floor to questions from the media. So for those of you who are not coming up to the table, stay in your seats. We'll just take those who have a direct transfer and ask them to come right here. Thank you very much. And if I could please invite the Premier to come back to the podium to take media questions.
Thank you for joining us today. We have members of the media here in person as well as those on the phone line. For those on the phone line, please press *1 to enter the queue, and a reminder to unmute, and you will be made audible for everybody here when we call upon you. We're going to begin with Rob Buffum from CTV News. Go ahead, Rob.
Oh, thanks for taking my question. My question is for the Premier. And the question is, we've spoken to an 87-year-old man from Saanich who spent 9 days in the hallway at Victoria General being treated for complications from an infection. You know, he was not happy about it, the reason being that he was in the hallway because of a lack of space and room. So I just want to get your response. Is that acceptable? What does it say about overcrowding in BC's hospitals? And what's the government doing to address that?
Thanks, Rob. You know, it's hard enough to be sick and have to go to hospital and require treatment, but to have to stay in a hallway doesn't meet the standards of any British Columbian in terms of the care that you should get in this province. Our healthcare system is under significant strain. The population growth in this province has been massive, and our wave of retiring healthcare workers after the pandemic has really left those who are keeping our hospitals running stressed and overworked. We put a number of pieces in place to address this. For example, we have expansions or new builds of hospitals across the province at 15 different sites. We have a health human resources strategy that includes a brand new medical school to train up additional healthcare workers. I am really disappointed that this gentleman had to go through this experience, but to him and to all British Columbians, we will work night and day to make sure that you get the health care that you deserve.
And Rob, do you have a follow-up question?
I do. This question is on behalf of a colleague who's doing a story about a Princeton woman. It's also a healthcare story. A Princeton woman went public this week about the financial burden she faces in order to receive a double lung transplant, because it's going to require her to live in Vancouver for months for medical appointments after her surgery. Other rural patients are facing similar challenges. She'd like to get your thoughts on this, and is there anything that can be done to ease the financial burden? And as well, I gather this patient has asked for a meeting with you. Will you sit down and talk to her about the concerns that she's raised?
I'll take the easy part first. Absolutely, yes, I'm happy to meet with her. Rob, feel free to forward her contact information over to my office. On the more challenging issue of delivering healthcare in rural communities, the healthcare challenges we faced around staff and facilities are particularly acute in rural areas. I was just up in Terrace on Friday, flew out of beautiful YVR here, and Terrace has a brand new hospital, the new Mills Memorial site that is on the verge of opening in November. It has now a trauma center in it, which means that people who live in Prince Rupert, anywhere in the region, if someone they love is badly injured or gravely ill, that person will not be transported to downtown Vancouver for treatment by air or to Prince George, leaving them disconnected from family and friends. That treatment will now take place closer to home. This is part of the overall work we're doing, opening cancer centers all different parts of the province, opening new hospitals or expanding hospitals in tiny communities like Fort St. James and fast-growing huge communities like the city of Surrey. We're doing a lot of work to make sure that people get the care they need where they need it, and it is a challenge. When you live in a rural community, you need an intensive operation like a double lung transplant, which is why we funded Hope Air, for example, to provide free transportation for people who need treatment. I look forward to meeting with her to talk with her about suggestions that she has about her particular health journey and things that we could do to make her life easier, because it sounds like a very intense operation. I wish her the best with it.
Our next question will come from Mira Baines from CBC News. Go ahead, Mira.
Thank you for taking my question, Premier. This is just about Surrey schools. They seem to be in crisis right now with some of the population growth out there. The district has asked for 9 new schools, 16 new additions, and 10 new acquisitions. So why is Surrey only getting 1 new school and 1 new addition? Can you explain to the public why it seems impossible for the province, the city, and school board to plan for schools to accommodate for projected growth?
Yeah, thanks for the question. It's not correct that Surrey's only getting one new school. Our government has opened spaces for, we're in the process of opening spaces for more than 10,000 students in Surrey. Under historic population growth trends, we would have eliminated portables in Surrey by this point. But obviously, the population growth has been exceptional in Surrey. 30-year highs, a shocking 1,500 additional students that have registered in the last couple of months in Surrey. The school board, to the parents in Surrey, the Ministry of Education will be working closely with the school board and others to do all we can to make sure that we're opening the space as possible. We're looking at innovative things like prefabricated expansions, modular expansions for schools, for grade schools and high schools. We expect to be opening hundreds of additional spaces for students in time for September in Surrey. And this is a serious challenge. It will require us all to work closely together, and we will do that.
And Mira, do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, I do. This is just about the latest poll that we saw. The latest poll shows that the BC Conservatives are punching high, basically within striking distance of your party. What do you think your party needs to work on as we head towards the next election?
Well, I do see the polls, and I'm certainly glad to see our numbers up over the last Main Street poll, but I know that it's just that, a poll. I have been in politics for 10 years, and I know that there's only one poll that matters. That's the election. And so that's why British Columbians are going to see me every single day working hard to deliver for them on issues around cost of living, issues around the public services that they depend on, including and especially healthcare. And making sure that we have safe communities where you can build a good life for yourself and your family. I have flagged repeatedly my concern about the growth of the extremist Conservative Party in British Columbia. A couple things I want British Columbians to know about this party, looking at these poll numbers, is that this is a party that wants to bring unvaccinated health workers. This is one of their main platform issues. They want to bring unvaccinated health workers into our hospitals, even though there's a measles outbreak in Quebec and there are measles cases across Canada. Now is the time that they want to bring unvaccinated health care workers into our hospitals. Measles kills and seriously injures babies and toddlers. They are not vaccinated right away when they're born. They are vulnerable to measles. This a political party that makes ideological decisions like this, that puts babies and infants at risk, is not one that has the best interests of British Columbians at heart. On the issue of climate change, we're talking about the future of BC's economy, where the world economy is going, opportunities for BC businesses to build on our clean economy advantage here, where we have an edge, where we have clean electricity, where we have companies that are doing cutting-edge work in this sector. And their leader doesn't think climate change is real. He doesn't think that carbon dioxide is a pollutant. He doesn't believe that there's a climate crisis, even despite the drought and the forest fires and all the terrible things that we've seen in this province. Our province needs to show leadership on climate change because we have been so affected by climate change. I look forward to engaging with Mr. Rustad on his far-right extremist ideas, his Republican culture war ideology he's trying to bring to British Columbians, because we don't want it here. And I hope British Columbians look carefully at what this man actually stands for.
Our next question will go to Katie DeRosa from the Vancouver Sun. Go ahead, Katie.
Hi, Premier. Some international master's students are scheduling a protest on Saturday because they say changes to the provincial nominee program means that they now require a job offer in order to apply for permanent residency, whereas they did not require that previously. So can you speak to how some of these changes brought on by the federal government will impact students in British Columbia?
Yeah, thanks. Good question, Katie. We have a limited number of spaces in British Columbia where we control immigration into the province. It's called the Provincial Nominee Program. Obviously, there has been huge interest in this program, and we've really used it to focus on bringing in the skilled workers that we need to grow our provincial economy and support British Columbians, healthcare workers, childcare workers, people with skilled trade experience, and so on. because there's been such significant demand for the program, the published guidelines of who would be eligible to apply and be successful in the program were not reflective of the reality of who actually was getting a spot through the program. The ministry has updated their guidelines of who actually has a chance of getting a spot through this program. There has not been a change in policy. It's just the demand is so high that our standards are higher because people have higher qualifications for English language, for example. They have a job offer in hand, for example, and those are the people who are getting the limited spaces that we have. By not updating those guidelines, unfortunately, some unscrupulous immigration brokers and others were saying, look, at this provincial program is very easy to get in. You only have to meet these minimum standards and you'll be able to get a spot, when the reality was quite different. So we've brought the guidelines more in line with the reality for people who are applying to the program so that they understand in advance what standard they need to meet to be able to access one of these limited spots.
And Katie, do you have a follow-up question?
Yes. Have you heard any feedback from the federal government to your request to make certain professions that are in demand exempt from the student caps?
Our work with the federal government, I believe, is complete for this school year. We've worked with our public post-secondary institutions to ensure that they're kept whole, and we're working tightly with them to get those offer letters out as soon as possible so that students who are thinking about coming don't think twice because they think that there may be changes to the program. For the private schools in the province, they are seeing significantly reduced numbers, and they are going to have to grapple with that, especially those schools that have really run up their numbers over the last couple of years. And so, to the best of my knowledge, our work is complete with the federal government in terms of our allocation for this coming school year.
For our next question, we're going to come back to the floor with Maria Rentanen from Richmond News. Go ahead, Maria.
Hi, thanks. I'm not sure if my questions are for the Premier or for Tamara, just on the announcement. So just wondering about this alternative fuel or sustainable fuel that you're talking about. I mean, mostly alternative fuel is often plant-based, and the question often is that, is this going to, especially in a time of we're worried about food security, whether this takes away from actual production of food to make fuel instead? So that's kind of my first question.
Yeah. Thanks. I'll pass it to Tamara.
Thanks, Premier, and thanks for the question. So you're absolutely right. There's a number of different biofuels that can be used to make sustainable aviation fuel. But the only one that's really in production today that works for aviation, because it's such a light fuel, pardon me, is actually meat and tallow rendering. So it comes from the byproduct of the meat processing industry. So at this point, we're not looking at plant-based or substituting food for fuel. The other area that's interesting, though, to us, and still a little ways off, but one where we think some research is needed, is in wood waste as a source of sustainable aviation fuel. As you know, our province, a rich history of forestry and sustainable forestry. How can we use wood waste? We have a natural competitive advantage there to be blended into sustainable aviation fuel.
And Maria, do you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, I was just curious what you were saying about using the river more for transportation. And is this an idea to start building some kind of terminals out here to move goods?
Yeah, so we're at the very early stages of understanding how our very privileged position in a large metropolitan region, where we can quickly and efficiently access and make access available to businesses and individuals for trade, how we can do that in a way that doesn't add to road congestion. So depending on how you look at it, YVR is either at the beginning of the road or the end of the road. And so when we add more cargo, often that means more trucks to get that cargo to its last mile or its end destination. We know that we already have significant issues with congestion in the Lower Mainland, and YVR is next to communities, schools, shopping districts, where it wouldn't be appropriate to put that volume of trucks. So we're starting some early thinking about, could we have one of the first air to marine terminals where we could take cargo and move it directly to marine environment, either ocean or river. Certainly in Europe, we see a number of electronic and battery-operated barges that go up and down the rivers and canals of Europe, efficiently, quietly delivering cargo to their destinations. We also know through our colleagues at the BC Aviation Council that there's a number of smaller airports, be it Pitt Meadows or Abbotsford or others in the Eastern Fraser Valley that also have access to a shorter road or river waterways where taking cargo from YVR, taking it directly to those points would avoid all of that ground transportation in the middle. So we're quite excited about opportunities where we can work with the Ministry of Transportation to understand where those multimodal pathways may exist and where we can use our significant competitive advantage here on the West Coast to create a fully accessible multimodal trading hub for the benefit of the province.
We have time for one more question. We're going to go back to the phone lines with Wolf Deppner from Black Press Media. Go ahead, Wolf.
Yes, thank you for taking my question, Premier. So a group of environmental organizations recently released a letter on Thursday decrying politicians who say they're shamelessly exploiting Canadians' very real economic pain for political gain. With the carbon tax going up April 1st, what is the argument in favor of the carbon tax going up?
Thanks, Wolf. Just before I get into that, I just want to clarify one thing Tamara said. There are probably a lot of people worried out there following her comments. Just because meat and tallow could potentially be a jet fuel does not mean, children of British Columbia, that you don't have to finish your dinner. This applies equally to the Eby children. On the important question of the carbon tax, the argument for British Columbia is pretty straightforward. The federal carbon tax requirement on BC is going up April 1st. We have two possible routes. One is we allow the federal government to administer the program, the federal law requires, and the other is that we administer the program provincially. By administering it provincially, it means that we can return more money to British Columbians. We know that British Columbians are facing serious affordability challenges, and so we have decided to take the route of provincially administering this program. We will continue to make that decision because we think in British Columbia we're best placed to make decisions for British Columbians, and we will continue to take that position.
And Wolf, do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, I do. Thank you. I want to just follow up on the question that my colleague Mira Baines asked, and I want to get sort of your reaction to the numbers that we saw in this Main Street research poll. The poll has methodological problems, but it points to the growing rise of the Conservative Party of BC, and 6 points, whether they're 6 points behind or 10 points behind. They are catching up. What is your party's strategy to hold off that particular party?
Thanks, Wolf. I think the poll is an important reminder, certainly for anyone who has been quick to dismiss the BC Conservative Party as an extremist party that will not find traction in our province, that we need to take this party seriously and what they're proposing seriously. So I've talked about unvaccinated health workers and their position on vaccines, which would have really badly hurt our province during COVID and would profoundly injure us in the next outbreak, whatever it is, measles or otherwise. I've talked about their position on climate, where they're going to undercut our growing advantage around clean tech and the growing economy, part of which is today's announcement today. On their website, they say they have a commitment to balance the budget in 2 years. They also say they're not going to increase taxes, which means that they will dramatically cut. There's only one way to do it. Dramatic cuts to healthcare funding, dramatic cuts to education funding, dramatic cuts to housing initiatives of this province. And I just have trouble believing, but we'll see, that this anti-science, right-wing extremist perspective will prove successful at the ballot box, but that's my job, to communicate that to British Columbians and to provide a credible alternative of what the direction is that I think our province should be going, which is ensuring that people can build a good life here for themselves and their family in safe communities where they get good health care and high-quality services. It will be a lively debate, it looks like, through the election period. But I will not stand by and not point out the far-right views of this Conservative Party and the culture war stuff that they're advancing against teachers and librarians, attacking them, saying that they're turning kids gay and trans is so ridiculous and offensive to hardworking teachers and librarians. They're just trying to help our kids get through the day. So we'll continue to advocate, and it'll be a good debate.
And that's all the time we have today. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks very much, everybody.
Okay, I will now ask the speakers to follow the lead of our photographer, Herman, for